Hello, Esther. Hello. Hello, Esther. Can you please on your mic? Hello. Hello, Esther.
Hi, how are
How are
you?
you? Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm so sorry. My sound isn't the best. Can you hear me well? Can you say
Yes,
it?
yes.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me well? Okay. I can't hear you very well, but that's because I have this double screen going on. That's okay.
Okay, no problem, Esther. Before starting the session, I want to introduce you to our audience.
Oh, pardon me. 2 seconds. I'll do this, and then I can probably hear you better. Could you repeat the question for me?
No, before starting your session, I want to introduce you to our audience, Esther.
Now, unfortunately, I'm so sorry.
Hello. Hello, Esther. Can you hear me? Esther, can you hear me?
I can. I can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Before starting the session, I want to introduce you to our audience, Esther.
Thank you.
Esther is a leadership and organizational change expert with over 25 years of experience in resolving workplace challenges related to adversity, uncertainty, and stress. She collaborates with senior leaders across industries, emphasizing transparency, trust, and teamwork to create positive work environments. Her expertise in human behavior enables her to drive real results, and she offers a free consultation to help individuals and organizations navigate workplace dynamics effectively. That was really a great bio, Esther, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much. Is my sound okay? Can you hear me well?
Yeah, yeah,
Perfect.
it's absolutely good.
Okay, I will share my screen. See a beautiful, oh, there I am again. I saw a beautiful presentation last night as well that was without um, slides. Well, I'm not quite there yet, but I will be one day. But for now, I will be sharing some slides that I will talk to for your audience. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to spending a little bit of time with all of you online from probably all corners of the world. I'm currently in Australia, and I'll just put this on presentation mode so you can see. Let me just make sure I can see you still. So I'm in Australia, and I am originally, you probably pick up the accent a little bit. I'm originally from the Netherlands. So I'm sure there is many beautiful countries represented on this call today. And I look forward to connecting with all of you at some point during this conference, as well as hopefully afterwards via LinkedIn or another platform. So today I'm going to speak to you about inspiring and empowering through change, but in particular around how employee engagement really impacts companies' bottom line, but also our overall well-being and our personal lives in essence. So without further ado, I would love to ask you, have you ever been in a job where you were physically present but mentally checked out? No. Unfortunately, I can't see your responses for a moment because I am navigating my screen, which is interesting. Just going to check if I've got any responses in the chat. No, I don't see any responses yet. Well, I think many of us will, even if you not right now are experiencing, but you know, when you rock up to work and you are feeling like you're going through the motions, just task by task, and you're not really present, you're not really wanting to be there. I think many people around the world at times feel like that with regards to work, but it has a real detrimental impact on the company's bottom line. And like Gallup is presenting in their annual report, in this case in their 2024 State of the Global Workplace report, that it costs businesses $8.9 trillion every year in order to, you know, when there's disengagement in the workplace. So they have various ways of measuring that. But disengagement really costs businesses a lot of money. But if that isn't necessarily something that like connects with you, let's look at some other indications that really give a context and scale to the problem. 50% of employees who leave their jobs leave because they want to get away from their manager. They don't really resonate with their manager, or their manager might be micromanaging them and not feeling empowered to do their job well. It's even been recorded by Sloan Management that a toxic work environment is 10 times more powerful as a prediction of people leaving jobs than compensation is. So it really isn't just about people's pay that draws people into a job or into a company and makes them stay. It's really also heavily related to the environment in which they get to work. And lastly, 57% of employees feeling disrespected at work was a major factor for them leaving their jobs. And we'll touch on that element of respect as well as belonging, being appreciated. We'll talk about that in a moment a bit more. Now, a lack of engagement has an impact on all aspects of us as human beings. It has an impact on our mental and emotional well-being. You can imagine that when we don't feel engaged in work, and work really feels like a hard push every day because we don't really feel purpose-driven, we don't really feel like our contributions are being appreciated, it increases our stress because we're constantly trying to figure out, how do we add value? How do we make sure that we are being seen in the right light by our peers, by our manager? It can increase anxiety because of it. And it can also really impact our self-esteem. So as a result of all of that, our confidence might decrease, and our emotional, it will be emotionally draining on us because we're constantly thinking of ways that we need to keep our job safe, you know, and show up and do our best job as much as possible in a very uncertain kind of environment. Our physical health is then also impacted as a result. You know, the stress that we feel due to not feeling connected to work and connected to our peers or to our leader creates a lot of stress in our bodies, and that shuts our immune system down. And that even has implications on organs, on just how our body functions. We'll definitely be more run down and therefore more likely to catch a cold or a flu. But there's other detrimental implications that stress has on our body. And some of you might know those, hopefully not from experience, but there is many research that connects stress to physical detrimental impacts on physical health. Another thing that is definitely very regular is the fact that people that are under a lot of stress have trouble sleeping well. And that's a very straightforward reason is if we have a lot of stress in our bodies, cortisol is the hormone that helps us wake up in the morning. So if we have a lot of stress, we tend to wake up throughout the night because of that higher level of cortisol. And lastly, all of that combined has an implication on how we make decisions during the day, how we behave, how we show up every day, and definitely also triggers us to have potentially more sick days, definitely not feeling as satisfied at work or as enjoyable at work. We're not thriving. And when we're in this state, we are in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. We're trying to survive, really. We're trying to just make do and get to that next day and make sure we keep our job safe and make sure that we get paid, to provide for our families and to keep the lights on, so to speak. And that can mean that we buckle down on the work, but are not as connected with our colleagues, with the workplace. We further and further isolate ourselves to just do the bare minimum, really. To get by. And that decreased social interaction has, again, that vicious implication on our mental and emotional health, again, on our physical health, and again, results in different impacts again. So it can be this vicious cycle, so to speak, that fuels each other on. Now meet Matteo and Joe. So Matteo and Joe, I've picked two people that both work in an office environment. I do have a lot of clients in offices, big offices, corporates, but I've also had experience working in factories and things like that. So the same kind of elements can absolutely apply in all different types of work environments. But in this case, both work in an office environment. And as they come to work in the morning, Matteo comes closer to work, swipes his card, has still got a spring in his step, catches the lift up to his floor, opens the door, and with a big smile starts to say good morning to people and asking them about how their weekend was or the last night, what they were up to. And he really enjoys connecting with his colleagues until he gets to his own desk. And even when he's at his own desk and turns on his computer, he settles in. While he does that, he's still kind of having chit chat around the place and connecting with his people. Now, later in the day, Matteo is attending the town hall, and he specifically comes in on the days there is a town hall because he really likes being there in person, being able to stick his hand up and say, I've got a question. I want to kind of drill deeper in on that topic, or I have a question like this. And he really likes to see the information and how it's been taken by his colleagues and peers, and then having a cup of coffee with a colleague to talk about it, or a chat by the water cooler, so to speak. So he really enjoys those days where there's a town hall on because it brings people together, and he sees a lot more colleagues as well in the one day. Now, Jo, on the other hand, as she gets closer to the office, she feels more weight in her legs. She swipes her card at the entrance, and her mood is starting to drop. Right, the smile that she had about thinking about the weekend or what she had been up to that morning, maybe with her family having breakfast. Her mood is starting to go downhill. And as she swipes and walks to the lift and goes up, her mood is further kind of lowering. As she enters the office space, she would literally try and keep her head down as much as possible and go as much unnoticed as possible towards her desk, where she can immediately kind of set up and oh. Are you unable to hear me? Oh, I think that was earlier. Are we still going okay? Just checking in. I can keep going? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, share. Sorry about that. We'll keep going. So yeah, Jo walks into the office straight for her computer, sits down, sets herself up, and gets stuck into her tasks. Now, also for her, later that day, there's a town hall. She's in the office, so she could attend it face to face, but she decides that it's easier for her to stay behind her desk, join the town hall virtually, so that she can jump straight to her next meeting after the town hall is finished. And it also kind of prevents her from having to engage too much with colleagues and, be seen too much. So she likes to be under the radar. A very different experience. And even though she might look optimistic to her colleagues and she might look fine to her colleagues, she feels very disconnected from her team, from her manager, from her peers around the company. And as she clocks off at 5 o'clock, she is drained. She does not have a spring in her step, does not feel a sense of achievement. She just goes home. She probably needs some time to unwind. And yeah, it isn't her favorite place to be. And it's definitely a drain to have to show up 5 days a week. So very different experience, yet a similar work environment. But one person is highly engaged and the other person is quite disengaged. So how do you identify a lack of engagement? I think a lot of us, because of how busy work gets, and we may not take the time to really recognize that some people really feel on the sidelines, don't feel engaged with the work, don't feel engaged with the team. So how you can recognize it is people that don't ask questions. We shouldn't just accept that certain people are quieter than other people, because it is an indication that they don't want to speak up, they want to fly under the radar, or they just don't know if they're going to ask something smart. They may not feel safe to ask a question even. Some people would not attend any team events or company events unless it was absolutely mandatory. You have those supper clubs, those social events that the business might organize or the team might organize, and they never join. And it doesn't seem clear why they're not joining. They're doing the bare minimum to just get the job done. There's never really a step outside the box to kind of help a colleague or help another team, or put their hand up for some extra work or a creative solution to a common problem that they face every day. And often they resist change because that's very uncomfortable and that's going to stretch them, and it creates more anxiety for them as well. So they tend to try and push back on whatever is changing. And interacting with a colleague, like I pointed out, is very limited and often a bit forced. So what do employees now really need in order to feel like they're thriving in the workplace? And I've done a lot of listening to podcasts, and I've done a lot of research into this, because there's these days so much on our human brain and on how we're just built as human beings, but also research into how businesses are thriving versus not. And so really what I could find is it boils down to three common things. As employees, as human beings, really, we want to feel like we are being respected. We're respected for the role we play in the group. We have a certain role to play. We have defined responsibilities and tasks to complete. And so we want to feel like we are being called upon at the right time to be engaged on different projects that, make sense for our role to step up. And we want to be respected for the contribution that we bring, for our voice to be heard, for our feedback to be shared and asked for as well at times. And then the second thing is we want to feel like we belong. It's a basic human need to feel part of a group. We are not built to be alone or like independent completely. We are social animals. And at work, it is incredibly important to feel like we feel part of the team. And that means the only way we feel like we belong is that we can show up with our whole self. So who am I? Where do I come from? What are my, religion? What is my religion? What's my background? Do I have a family? Am I a carer at home? The kinds of aspects of my life that really shape me. You would like to be known for that. You would like people to know that about you, because that is your whole person, and that whole person comes to work and can contribute. There might even be hobbies that you have that can contribute in a creative way in the workplace as well. And those are all the sorts of aspects of feeling like you belong. You belong as a whole person at work, in your team and in your environment. And the last thing is being recognized for the contribution that you bring. So it's super important to say thank you, to your colleague who just reached out and helped you with the task. It's very important as a team leader or as a senior leader to recognize where great work has been done, where great milestones have been achieved, where progress has been made. And another way to recognize contributions is to really organize the celebrations around great milestones being achieved, team effort, as well as individuals that are getting an award for a certain activity or behavior that they've shown that is very much in line with the company culture and has helped the company move forward. Reaching out to another team and helping them out when they are in a pickle. It's just showing that gratefulness for their contribution is something that really gives us a lot of positive and happy chemicals, and that offsets the stress it may have caused to actually be able to execute all those tasks and all that responsibility that we have to act on every day. Now, the link to our growth and our fixed mindset. I'm sure most of you have heard of our growth and fixed mindset. And, we don't tend to spend time in just one space. We're not just only in a growth mindset space. I once got a COO to ask me, Esther, do we move in between these stages? And I said, absolutely yes. And the reason why that is that when we're in a state of stress, for example, depending on how high that stress level is and how much it is impacting us personally, it can mean that during that time, we're more likely to spend time in that fixed mindset because we're trying to just do the bare minimum to survive. We're really in that state of fight, flight, or freeze. But in our normal way, when we're relaxed, when we're happy, when we're maybe surrounded by our favorite people, by our family, we tend to be very curious and very exploratory and innovative. And so we spend more time in our growth mindset. And so it is not necessarily linked to our identity. It's more a state of mind at the time. And it's very important for us to become aware of where we are at. Because if we're in a fixed mindset, we're less likely to be highly collaborative. We're less likely to think creatively. We're also less likely to accept other points of view. We're probably a little bit less resilient and adaptable to changes and to other suggestions of new ways of doing things. And that doesn't necessarily work well in an environment where there's a lot of change happening, where there is innovation occurring. And especially at this time in the world, we cannot necessarily progress with a company and be sustainably successful if we don't continue to innovate and improve, because everyone around us is. And the context in which we operate is continuously changing. And so we need to try and adapt with that. So becoming aware of where you're at is very important first step. And then there are all sorts of strategies to get yourself more towards that growth mindset. One of the key ways of getting more out of that stress response towards your growth and curious mindset is to move your body. That's the first thing to do, because as you move your body, all these happy chemicals will offset the stress and it will give you space. That's why I often start my resilience sessions, for example, change resilience sessions, with a dance. And I make people do a little science experiment with me, and I check in with them before they do their dance and then after they do their dance. And they feel just their energy levels going up. And you probably experienced something similar in the past. So moving from fixed mindset to growth mindset can be as simple as move your body, but also just become aware of where you're at and how you're approaching certain tasks at work or requests from colleagues. Am I being very stubborn? Am I being set in my way? Or am I open to what this other way of doing things could lead to? And so becoming aware of it is step one. And then, yes, definitely finding other strategies to help yourself get comfortable, to be more curious, to be more collaborative, and think a little bit more outside the box on different things at work. The growth mindset is definitely a key way of working together with your team in developing new ways of working that will help propel you forward. Now, what does good look like in the workplace? I am sure many of you would have heard of the Southwest story. I mean, Southwest has been known as one of those airlines that has been able to keep being profitable throughout the worst of times. And they are often called out as some of the best place to work. And the reason why that is threefold. There are three key things that they do for their employees that really shows that those three things I was calling out, which is, a sense of belonging, respecting your employees, and recognizing them for their contribution. So how that shows up in Southwest is empowered employees are able to do the safety instructions in their own creative way. So some of those flight attendants, they will be singing the safety instructions in the plane, or they might throw a little joke in there every now and then, and they get so creative, and they get sometimes the whole plane to be in stitches, laughing because of how they're presenting the safety instructions. The positive thing about that is, as we are laughing, our brains open up and we take that information in a lot better. So the creativity doesn't just have a real fun element and make people feel good. It actually has a really great impact on people absorbing the information as well, which is important for kind of safety instructions in a plane. The second one is profit sharing. So they have a really generous profit sharing model. Just in 2023 alone, they shared 667 million in bonuses across their staff. So they have a generous way of paying their staff what they gained from their amazing contributions. And then lastly, they hire for attitude. So they really focus not on necessarily on the skills, because they think skills can be learned and taught, but cultural fit. So how does this person fit in with us? Do they feel like excited to go to work? Do they feel like they can bring their whole self to work? And do they want to connect with their colleagues and want to make an effort to bring the best service to their clients? And so consistently, Southwest has been ranked as the best place to work. It's been profitable for 47 consecutive years, which is hard to do in the airline industry, as some of you might know. Customer loyalty has always been on the up. It's been incredible how people love just sticking with Southwest, particularly in the US, of course. Now, how does this connect all together? There are three fundamentals I tend to talk to when it comes to building the most resilient change environment, and that is trust, transparency, and teamwork. And if we can work on those three things, our engagement will go up. Therefore, our innovation ability and capability will go up, and definitely our productivity will go up, with the end result being our company's performance will go up. So what is trust really, and how does that show up at work? Well, what you may have noticed in some of your experiences is that leaders who try to micromanage their staff tend to micromanage their staff because they actually don't trust that they will do a good job. So they want to be involved every step of the way. Well, the thing that I try to promote when I work with leaders is the opening bit of trust. Because inherently, and this has also been researched and proven, us human beings really want to step up to the expectation someone puts on us. So for example, if a perfect stranger is walking past you in the street and you really want them to take your picture, you give a perfect stranger your camera or your phone, today's world, and they don't run off with it. No, actually, they try to do such a good job for you to make the best picture. And most of them even ask you, can you check if you like your photo? I mean, that was a perfect stranger who was not asked or paid, rewarded in any type of way for this act, but they really stepped up to your expectation, your trust in them to make a nice photo and not run off with your phone or camera. Now, the opening bit of trust is also really logical, because you've gone through a robust process to hire someone, and yet when they join your team, you question if they can do the job. Well, actually, if you treat them as, I've done my due diligence, I've hired them, I trust now that they will do a good job, then if you down the track see that there's certain areas where they are weaker and other areas where they are stronger, then you can start to help them in those weaker areas and have those conversations. But you have given them the empowerment to do their job first and show where their strengths lie and how they are able to conduct themselves in that role. Transparency is a tricky one. And I've been listening a lot recently to Rachel Botsman, and it's very interesting transparency can be taken overboard, so to speak, where everything's transparent and we almost become like a surveillance kind of company. And that is challenging, because then a lot more information becomes available to people that may not be relevant and can also be misused. So transparency can be tricky and can have a negative implication if we go and share too much. So we have to be mindful about that. But what transparency is about is to open the gates to dialogue. We share the information that people want to hear, or even if we cannot share that information yet, we will make sure that we acknowledge the type of information they're after, and we acknowledge that we cannot share that at this point in time, but we will do so as soon as we can. I mean, in big companies, there are non-disclosure agreements that play a part, commercial kind of risks, and other types of compliance risks that sometimes play a part in not being able to be fully transparent with all employees at a certain point in time. But just acknowledging that employees have those questions, have those uncertainties, is a great way of creating dialogue. At least people feel free to ask the question, people know the information will be coming, and that calms that stress response to change. Now, these both combined, an open dialogue, an opening bit of trust, really creates the best environment in which teamwork can start to flourish. We're all on the same page. We've been given the same information, so we're all empowered to do our best within the role that we have within the team. And that then creates that increase in engagement and better results for the business. Now, mindful of time, so I'll go through these a little bit quicker. I think some of you probably have seen this in the newspapers, and it has come up on all sorts of platforms, that Wells Fargo had a real infamous disaster in 2016, when it became apparent that they had been creating many thousands, if not millions, I don't know how many, fake accounts. And so there were a lot of employees involved in this conduct. And those people were not all bad people. They were just people that were doing what was asked of them by their leaders. So they wanted to keep their job. They knew probably what they were doing wasn't quite right, but they had to keep their job. And that was the environment in which they operated, probably quite toxic, because they were tasked to do the wrong thing, create fake accounts to make it look like they were a lot bigger company than they were. Now, this resulted obviously in detrimental results to Wells Fargo, and I don't think they will ever recover from that. But Uber was an amazing company, skyrocketing to fame, competing with the taxis everywhere, and really showing a new way of commuting and traveling. Giving that transparency of having the trip on your phone and knowing exactly which car you would go into, and getting to know your driver. But unfortunately, the person who founded Uber got really kind of hungry for more and became quite an aggressive leader who was really fostering an environment in which it was winning at all costs. And the drivers that were doing the hard yards, they were treated like numbers. They were disposables. There were always going to be more drivers. And so this meant that competition came out of nowhere and started taking over Uber's market share. So it definitely had major consequences to their bottom line. And eventually the CEO had to step down as well. They're probably doing a lot better these days. So trust, transparency, and teamwork. I've touched already a bit about this, so I won't go into too much detail. I'll leave this on the screen if you wanted to take a screenshot. But it's known that high trust workplaces have a 76% higher engagement rate. And as we saw before with the wheel, engagement leads to better company results. Transparency, a lot of employees want more transparency. And the way we can do that is by sharing what we know and also acknowledging those things we don't know. Creating time and a safe space for open dialogue where people can ask questions. Sometimes you have an answer to them. If you don't, you just park it and say, we will get back to you when we can share that answer or when we know that answer. And definitely celebrate success. And with teamwork, it's important to treat employees as individuals. No, they're not all the same. So some people really like to be put in the spotlight and others don't. And some people really appreciate a one-on-one meeting and unpacking what they're working on, and others don't necessarily need that as much. But it's knowing what your people need in order to thrive. Now, I will go back to trust for a second. That is the tricky part. Showing up as a leader that can build trust with their audience in a way that is authentic, personable, and connects with the individuals that you're leading is so powerful, because it makes them see that you're also human, that you also make your mistakes, and that you own those mistakes, and that you always try to do better. And that's the kind of thing you want to see in your employees as well. And you really kind of have to show up. If you've done your due diligence, you've hired individuals in your team that you trust to do a great job, give them that trust, give them that space to show up and show what they can do and meet your expectations or exceed. Now we've run out of time a little bit. I will just check in for a second. Can I continue? Oh, thank you for the encouragement. Really lovely in the chat. I'll see if I can keep going for a little bit as we're still all together. Well, this is me playing a basketball game. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. This is me playing basketball last Tuesday, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to touch on this because it was a really clear moment in this game. It was a finals game, our second finals that we lost in a row. So our team has some players in it that are excellent individual players. And we just played more as individuals. And we ended up, I'm not the best player. I've only just started again after 25 years of not playing. And so, but I too got on the bandwagon of getting really frustrated with the referees. Hi, Melinda. Can I keep going or shall I finish up?
Yeah, we are running late as well. So you can continue.
Oh, thank you. I'll be very quick. It's almost at the end. So yeah, we had the finals last Tuesday, and as we were playing this game, I noticed that our opponents, which we could have won from because of the caliber of people we have in our team and because of past experience that we played this same team. But I saw how we were playing, and we were getting really frustrated with the referees. We were playing against ourselves, as we said to each other. And so we weren't a team. We weren't connected. We weren't engaged. People were going on their own way. And at a moment in time when I was really frustrated that we were losing the game, I realized the other team has really deserved to win. They play as a team. They're cheering each other on. They're giving each other the ball. And they're constantly communicating. They were constantly communicating with each other, calling out each other's name for the pass and so on. There was a lot of connection in that team and a lot of joy. They had a lot of joy in their game, and we were all frustrated. So yes, we did not show up as our best selves. And so afterwards, I really sent out a message to the team like, do we want to do a bit of reflection on how we showed up? Because we do like each other off the courts. But as we got so invested in wanting to win, we started playing as individuals. It was a bit of a stress response. It was a bit of the worst parts coming out of us, you know? So tomorrow's our next game, and we'll see how that goes. But it was a clear example of where people that were not necessarily, some of the players were not of the highest caliber that some of our team have. And again, that's not me. But they played as a team, and that's what made them win. So we lost by 5 points, and we were very frustrated. Now, I've got 2 more slides to share with you. This is one of those things that I always talk to senior leaders about, and that is that all of us human beings suffer from a negative bias. That is the same for all of us. That's why you hear about journaling and gratitude practice and so on, because our brains are negatively wired. We will always think of the worst case first. And so during times of change, we will make up stories in our minds about how this is going to impact us. And that is generally negative, but it's also generally not based on fact. And so what is so important in the workplace is that we create an open dialogue around change where we can validate the assumptions that we're making about what lies ahead. Because those assumptions are based on our internal dialogue. And some of those things might be warranted, absolutely. The important thing is that we validate those assumptions with fact-based information, with our colleagues, with our leaders, so that we can then know what is fact versus what are we generating in our own minds. Now, the other part to this is what I've seen a lot happen. People that are stuck in this negative thinking and don't necessarily communicate what they're thinking, they are generating a lot of stress as well. And so they become more in that fixed mindset, of not wanting to change. So it's definitely one of those slippery slopes if we don't kind of speak up and really kind of assess what is a truth from my negative assumptions to protect myself. Now, last but not least, we're nearly there. So engaged employees, back to that connection between our mental and emotional health, our physical health, and then as a result, how do we behave? How do we show up? If leaders, us in the workplace, care for employees, see the individual they are, consider their personal context and how they thrive in their work, how they can be empowered to do their best work, then we see people feeling more motivated. We see people being more purpose-driven. It's always very important, something I start with when I join a company or a big program of work. I always talk about why are we doing this? Why is this urgent? And our physical health will follow, and our behavior and our actions will speak volumes after that as well, in a much healthier work environment. And I'm so sorry I went over time, but I appreciate for all of you sticking around, and thank you for the opportunity, Melinda and WIN team, for having me.
Thank you, Esther. That is really a fabulous speech.
Thank you.
We have a lot of knowledge from your speech.
Thank you.
And we have 2 questions from our audience as well, Esther. We will post it to your email.
Sounds great. I can respond to them. Thank you so much, everyone.
So much.
Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye.